You ever notice how someone's entire body language can shift the moment their phone lights up? It's subtle, but it's there. Maybe it's the quick glance, the swift tap to make the screen go dark again, or that slight lean away from you. It doesn't seem like much at first, and that's the dangerous part. It never starts as a big, obvious red flag. It starts with something small, almost unnoticeable. But when a man is hiding another woman, his relationship with his phone becomes a whole different kind of secret relationship. Suddenly, he's carrying his phone everywhere, not just when he leaves the room, but even to take out the trash or step into the bathroom. You start realizing that you can't remember the last his phone was just lying around. You catch him reading messages with the screen tilted away from you. Or worse, he stops replying to messages when you're next to him, like he needs to deal with it later. And that later never seems to happen when you're watching. The phone becomes his private sanctuary, and you're no longer invited. It's not just about being secretive. It's about the shift in trust. Think about how it was at the beginning. Maybe you'd grab his phone, take a selfie, look up a restaurant, or play a song, and it was never a thing. He didn't flinch. But now there's a new passcode, or Face ID only. And when you ask, even casually, why'd you change it? He brushes it off with something vague like, oh, just being more secure. But security isn't the issue, secrecy is. Let me be clear, not every person who wants privacy on their phone is hiding something. Privacy is a right, but when privacy transforms into defensiveness, or when it comes wrapped in lies, distractions, or overreactions, it's no longer about boundaries. It's about deception, especially if you've never given him a reason not to trust you. One woman told me her boyfriend used to leave his phone on the counter without thinking twice. But once things started to feel off between them, the phone began going everywhere with him. He'd keep it face down during dinner, silence it when they were together, and started replying to texts with vague answers like, just work stuff. Eventually, she discovered that work stuff was a contact saved under a fake name, someone he had been messaging for weeks. The messages weren't explicit. In fact, they were carefully worded, like he knew they had to stay under the radar. But the emotional betrayal, that was real. What's heartbreaking about this is not just the betrayal. It's the moment you start questioning your own instincts. Because when a man becomes secretive with his phone, he's not just hiding her, he's making you question your own sanity. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. He has a right to privacy. And yes, those things might be true. But here's what you have to ask yourself. Did this behavior suddenly change? Is this new? And does it come with a side of distance, a drop in communication, or moments where your gut whispers, something isn't right? A man who's invested in his relationship doesn't make you feel like an outsider in his world. He doesn't suddenly become protective over a device that once felt like a shared tool in the relationship. He doesn't snap when you glance at the screen. He doesn't hesitate to leave it out in the open. When you're his priority, he doesn't need to build walls around the ordinary. But when he's hiding another woman, the ordinary becomes sacred ground he doesn't want you near. His texts, his call history, even his social media behavior changes. He might start liking fewer of your posts, or stop posting photos with you altogether. And every explanation starts to feel like a cover story, half true at best, fully rehearsed at worst. The painful truth is, when a man is juggling loyalty between you and someone else, he protects the lie more than he protects your heart. He becomes more emotionally loyal to keeping the secret than he is to nurturing the connection. And when the phone becomes a vault, locked and always on his person, that's not about respect for personal space. It's about creating just enough distance to keep you from seeing what's really going on. So if you're sitting here, remembering how things used to be, how simple and open it felt, and now that same openness has been replaced by excuses and silence, trust what you feel. Don't ignore that tug in your chest, because it's not just about the phone. It's about what the phone represents: access, intimacy, and transparency. And when those start to disappear, it's rarely without reason. You don't have to be paranoid, but you do have to be honest with yourself. That's where the real strength begins. Something starts to feel off in the way his time moves. You can't put your finger on it first, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual. But one day, you catch yourself thinking, he's not where he usually is right now. Or maybe it's more subtle. A few late nights here and there. Sudden emergencies that pop up. Plans that get cancelled at the last minute with excuses that feel just a little too polished. When a man is hiding another woman, his routine's slippery, unpredictable. And that's not a coincidence. It's because his time is no longer just yours. It's now being split between two people. And juggling that creates inconsistency, not just in how often he sees you, but in the way he shows up when he does. At the beginning, you could practically set your clock by him. You knew his rhythm. You had your his moments. The little rituals, the calls during lunch, the evenings together. But now those dependable habits start shifting. He's tied up, stressed with work, or has a friend going through something. And at first, you give him the benefit of the doubt because, of course, life happens. We all get busy. But what changes when there's another woman in the picture is that busyness becomes a shield, a cover, and he hides behind it to avoid accountability. One of the clearest signs something is wrong isn't actually in what he says. It's in what stops making sense. You hear him talk about being exhausted from a meeting that ran late, but the timeline doesn't add up. He says he was home early last night, but he didn't reply to your message until nearly midnight. Or he tells you he's going somewhere and doesn't post anything, doesn't share a moment from the night. And when you ask how it was, you get a vague, "Yeah, it was fine." A woman told me once that her boyfriend had always been predictable with his weekends. Friday night was date night. Saturday mornings he went to the gym. Sunday they'd do brunch. Then suddenly, he was working weekends. But she noticed the gym bag in his car was untouched. Brunch stopped happening. And when she asked about it, he gave her so many reasons it almost made her feel guilty for questioning him. That's another thing that happens when a man is hiding someone. He gets better at deflecting than at explaining. He knows the truth is fragile, so he creates a fog of half-truths instead. And I want to pause for a second here because this isn't about snooping or tracking someone's every move. This is about consistency. When someone's invested in you, their time reflects that. Their routine makes space for you, not confusion. And they don't suddenly become impossible to pin down unless they're trying not to be found. What happens next is usually even more damaging than the inconsistencies themselves. It's that you start internalizing them. You begin to think, maybe I'm too needy or maybe I should be more understanding. You start adjusting to his chaos instead of asking why there's chaos in the first place. And this is how so many people end up in relationships where they feel like an afterthought because they were taught to doubt their instincts every time the schedule stopped making sense. The truth is, when a man is hiding another woman, he's managing two lives. And no matter how good he is at lying, time doesn't lie. It leaves gaps. And the longer you pay attention, the more those gaps start showing patterns. He becomes more reactive than present. He's in a rush to get off the phone. He starts avoiding spontaneous hangouts because he doesn't know how to explain where he's actually been or why he's suddenly not available. He may even try to flip it on you, accusing you of being controlling or insecure when you bring up the inconsistencies. That's manipulation. It's not just about dodging your questions. It's about making you feel like you're the problem for noticing the change. But here's the truth. Noticing a shift in someone's behavior isn't controlling. It's called paying attention. And attention is what we should bring into a relationship, especially when the other person starts pulling away without explanation. What's even more tragic is that many women, once they finally see what's going on, realize they knew long before they admitted it to themselves. They felt the irregularities. They clocked the red flags. But they wanted so badly to believe in the good version of him, the version they met first, that they ignored the version that started showing up later. So if his routine suddenly feels like a maze, if his schedule starts filling with silence instead of connection, if you find yourself making excuses for where he might be because he no longer tells you where he is, don't gaslight yourself. The timing not be enough to prove anything, but it's often more than enough to know something's wrong. And when his time stops belonging to you, it's usually because he's already giving it to someone else. There's a kind of silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like absence, not physical absence, but emotional. And when a man is hiding another woman, that silence starts showing up more and more. Not in loud arguments or explosive moments, but in the little ways he pulls back, the ways he stops being with you, even when he's sitting right there. At first, it's barely noticeable. He might still text you, "Good morning." Still ask how your day was, still say, "I love you," when you hang up the phone. But the energy behind those words has shifted. It feels like he's just going through the motions, like he's ticking boxes instead of reaching for you. You feel it in the way he hugs you. It's a second too short. In the way he kisses you, more distracted than connected. In the way his eyes don't light up the way they used to when you walk into the room. That emotional distance is one of the most subtle but painful indicators that something's off, because it messes with your ability to trust your own feelings. You look at him, and logically, he hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't said anything cruel, or disappeared, or admitted to anything. But emotionally, you feel like you're alone in the relationship. And it's exhausting, because part of you keeps trying to reach him. You ask if everything's okay. You try to create space for intimacy. You suggest date nights, meaningful conversations, anything to bring that closest back. And what do you get? Vague responses, defensiveness. or worse, indifference. When a man is hiding another woman, he starts withdrawing emotionally, not just to protect the lie, but to make the disconnection easier for him. It's like he's detaching in slow motion, not enough to create a scene, just enough so that when the truth eventually comes out, he can say, "We were already drifting apart," as if that justifies it. But here's the thing. You felt that drift long before he admitted it, because emotional withdrawal doesn't happen by accident. It's intentional. It's a quiet, calculated way of easing his own guilt, of making the betrayal feel less like betrayal and more like a natural ending. He may even tell himself that he's being fair by pulling back, that it would be more hurtful to stay fully engaged while hiding something, but all that does is leave you confused and starving for affection you can't name. I spoke to someone once who said her partner hadn't changed his routine, hadn't started being secretive, hadn't even acted cold, but she still felt like something was off. She told me, "It's like I'm with him, but I can't feel him anymore." That's the gut punch of emotional distance. It's the moment you realize the man who once shared everything with you, his thoughts, his energy, his vulnerability, is now sharing that part of himself with someone else. And you don't get a warning, you just get silence. What makes this so painful is that emotional connection is the foundation of trust. Before anything physical ever happens, emotional cheating begins with attention, with interest, with conversations that should be reserved for the person you love, slowly being handed to someone else. That's where the betrayal starts, not in a hotel room, in the heart, in the little choices to open up to someone else instead of you. And when that begins, you're left feeling like you're not enough, like maybe you're the one who's changed. You start asking, what did I do wrong? Or am I being too sensitive? But the truth is, you didn't change. The intimacy just stopped being mutual. You were still showing up, still trying, still reaching for him. He was just reaching somewhere else. He may not even realize how much he's pulling away, but the signs are there. He doesn't talk to you like he used to. You ask him how he's feeling and get, "I'm fine." You ask if something's wrong and hear, "You're overthinking." Every time you try to get closer, he puts another wall up. And when someone is building walls between you, it's usually because they're opening doors somewhere else. A man hiding another woman doesn't always come home smelling like perfume or with lipstick on his collar. Sometimes he comes home exactly the same way, except emptier. He's not angry. He's not distant in the obvious way. He's just not it anymore. And the scariest part is how easy it is to start blaming yourself for the change. But it's not your job to convince someone to stay emotionally engaged. It's your job to notice when they've already left the room. Because if you have fight for someone to feel something that used to come naturally, that's not love. It's a warning sign. There's something confusing that happens when a man starts hiding another woman. He doesn't always pull away in the way you expect. In fact, sometimes he starts leaning in more. He becomes sweeter, more attentive. He might start surprising you with gifts, texting you more often, doing things he used to forget. And at first, it feels like things are improving, like he's finally putting in the effort you've been craving. But here's the truth most people don't want to admitting sometimes. A man becomes more affectionate not because he's more in love, but because he's trying to bury the guilt. He's trying to compensate. He's not showing up from a place of clarity. He's showing up because he knows, on some level, he's betraying you, and he's hoping that if he gives just enough, you won't notice the parts of him that are already gone. That overcompensation can be so deceptive, because you've been in this relationship long enough to know what his affection usually looks like. You know what real connection feels like. So when it suddenly becomes exaggerated, when the "I love yous" are more frequent but feel rushed, when the compliments come fast but lack that emotional weight, they start to feel hello. He's doing the things he thinks a good boyfriend should do. He's checking the boxes. But something's missing and you can feel it. And it's so easy in that moment to gaslight yourself, to think, maybe I'm just being cynical. Maybe I should be grateful he's being nice. But real love doesn't feel like you're being bought off. It doesn't feel like a PR campaign to convince you everything's okay. Real love is rooted in presence, not performance. You know what overcompensation looks like. It looks like a man bringing home flowers when he hasn't listened to you in weeks. It looks like a man booking a surprise dinner but dodging every deep conversation. It looks like gestures without the emotion behind them. And while the outside world might see him as the perfect guy, you're left wondering why all this effort somehow makes you feel even more alone. Because the most dangerous thing about overcompensation is that it often works, at least for a while. It distracts you. It puts just enough sugar on the situation to make you ignore the bitterness underneath. And he knows that, whether consciously or not, he's buying time. He's managing your suspicion with surface-level affection. And you start questioning your instincts because you don't want to seem ungrateful. How can I feel suspicious when he's finally giving me attention? How can I question him when he's being sweet? But love that comes from guilt isn't sustainable. It's reactive. It only lasts as long as the guilt is sharp enough to drive it. Eventually it fades, the effort slows, and what's left is someone who doesn't know how to be honest about why they were trying so hard in the first place. I remember someone telling me he started doing everything I wanted, date nights, texting more, even writing me notes. But I could tell it wasn't about us. It was about him trying to hide something. That's the part most people miss. When someone is being extra good to you, it should be because they're emotionally connected, not because they're trying to mask their disconnection. And sometimes it's not even romantic gestures. It can be over-the-top defensiveness, constant reassurance. He might start saying things like, "You know I'd never hurt you," or "I hate cheaters," or "You mean the world to me." Not because you needed to hear it, but because he needed to say it, to manage his own conscience, to build a narrative where he's still the good guy. But here's the thing, good guys don't need to convince you they're good. You just feel it. And when love is real, the actions match the emotion. The affection isn't theatrical, it's grounded, and you don't feel the need to decode it. You just receive it. So if you find yourself in a place where his sudden attentiveness feels off, if the gifts, the compliments, the gestures feel more like distractions than genuine moments of connection, listen to that feeling. Don't ignore it just because the behavior looks right on paper. Love shouldn't feel confusing. It shouldn't make you feel like you're constantly second guessing whether something is genuine. Because when a man is hiding another woman, he's not trying to make things right. He's trying to make things seem right.